In this section, we will start writing the formula to calculate the values which will be used to be displayed in the calendar. This is for one chosen employee for every single day between the start date and the end date. We want to populate whether it was a working day or a holiday or a weekday. And so we're going to first talk about the logic we want to implement, and then we will go into actually implementing that in Excel. So this is how we're going to write the logic as. It's a slightly longer version, but it'll be easy once you follow the pattern here. So the logic is going to be, if the date is not a valid date, then put NA. The date here means if it's a February 30th, it should not be valid, so it'll put NA. If the date is less than report start date, meaning because we're going to show up to 12 months in the calendar, and we don't want to display the data for prior to the report start date. So whatever the report start date the user enters, any date before that, we will actually set not applicable. Similarly, if the date is greater than the report end date, we will also put NA. If the date is before the employee start date, so this is kind of where the employee should have been employed, and if not, it'll say NE. If the date is greater than the employee end date, that'll also say NE. If the date is a holiday, then it'll say HOL. If it's a weekend day, it'll be weekend. If the employee took a vacation on that day, then we will display the type of vacation that the employee had. And then if nothing else, then we will mark it as a work day. So this is the logic we're going to implement in Excel. As you can see, it's nested ifs, where we have several if statements we will have, which will be the formula that we are going to write now. So now let's get started. So we're going to write the formula here. And as we have seen before, once we write the formula there, we can copy it over to all the cells, because they're going to be, the formula is going to be written in such a way that it will apply to all the cells once we write it. I'm just going to expand it, so we need a little bit more space to write the nested if. So let me move that up a little. Okay, now let's start writing for the first if part, which is whether the date that we are looking at. So the date is going to be if the let's say if it's February, we know that it will not have 30th, or let's take for example April, and it'll only be through April 30th. It'll never have April 31. So this in this cell, and we're going to lock the row as 11, because it's going to always be row 11. And if this value, which is the nth day in the month, if that is greater than end of month of this month, this is the starting date. If you remember, we have actually put the starting date of the month here. So I'm going to lock the column B, and we will do end of that minus the starting of the month. Starting of the month is the same cell. And so the end minus starting plus 1. So this is going to tell us how many days are there in the month. And so if this C11 is greater than the number of days in the month, then we want it to display NA. Okay, otherwise display nothing. Let's close it out. Okay, it looks like I entered the formula over here instead of typing it inside this cell. That's okay, I'll copy it. And now you can see that it's still referring correctly. And I'm going to hit enter. Wherever my formula was here, I'm going to clear those cells. And now, so this is our formula. So as we discussed before, we're going to select all the cells here, and then we will edit mode, control enter. So now we can see that it's populating NA wherever the dates are not applicable. So February 2018 will not have these, and then March will have everything. April will not have 31. So that's why there's NA. So the next part of the NA is if the date is actually before or after the start, before the start date or after the end date. So in order to write that part, I'm just gonna do Alt Enter to go to the new line within the formula, and I'm going to type if. Here, what we want to do is if the date is less than the report start date. So date, the date, we first have to calculate the date, and we're going to calculate it by saying year of this cell, month of this cell, and then we need to show the day, and for the day part we'll actually use the number in the top. So that means January, year is 2018, month will be 1 because it's January, and then this is first day. So the result of this function will be 1st of January in 2018. And so when we extend the formula later, it'll apply correctly to all the cells. So now this date, keep in mind that we will be using this part of the formula again and again many times. So please remember that we're doing date of the year, month, and then this is the key part where the day is going to be dynamic as we go across in columns. Okay, now if this date is less than our start date, then we want to say not applicable, right? And then we also want to say not applicable if this date is greater than the end date. So in order to write a slightly more advanced function, I'm going to do an AND. So I'll explain this a little bit with some space in between. So I'm going to copy the whole thing, and I can go in here and say, if the date is greater than end, and I'm going to close the parenthesis for my AND. So what the AND is doing is it calculates this, sees whether it's true or not, and then sees whether it's true or not, and then provide NA. Actually, the AND function is not the right function here, because AND means both should be true, but we want to know if either. So if this is true or this is true, then it's not applicable. If the date is less than the start date or greater than the end date, then it's not applicable. So that sounds fine. And since we have to put a comma to say what should we do if it's not true, then we go and put nothing. And since we opened a new if function, we're going to close parenthesis. And so now I'm going to select all the cells, edit mode, control enter, and we have a lot of errors. There's something wrong with the formula, which we will look at now and see what's going on. For the second month onwards, we have this problem. So the date of year B12, month C11. Okay, so now I realize what the mistake is. So I should have actually put the locking on row 11, because the row 11 is where the dates are. Since I put the locking in the wrong place, we get the wrong result. So now, not a problem. This is part of how the development works. Once we do it, we write the formula, and then we realize if there is a mistake, we'll go and fix it. So now we can clearly see the NA being applied whenever the report end dates are not matching. So for example, in this case, the report end date is 3rd November. So from 4th November, you will see that it says NA. If I move this to 12/3, you will see that now from 4th December, it'll be not applicable. So this is how we will do, we will account for the different start date and end date the user will input. So the next step is to do not employed, and for not employed, I'm just going to do again Alt Enter, and we will try to copy the whole thing and paste it. The reason why I'm doing that is because our logic is going to be very similar. We're just going to replace the report start date with C_EMP start. So if you remember, this is nothing but the employee start date. So if the date is less than the employee start date, or if the date is greater than, you guessed it right, employee end date, then it's not employed. And since we opened a new if function, I'm going to put another close parenthesis here, and I'm going to hit enter, select all the cells, edit mode, control enter, And now we see a lot of not employed records here, because this employee 2 started on 12th June. So from before 12th June, everything will be not employed. But if I change this to employee 1, this employee ended the employment on 10th June. So from 11th June, the employee shows up as not employed. So it seems to be working as we desire so far. So now we are done with not employed. The next part is to go into holidays. So just like we did with the team dashboard, what we need to do is to go and match the date with the list of holidays. So we're going to do match. And in the match, we need to provide the date. So I'm going to copy this part of the formula. So this is going to be match the date with the list of holidays. Do an exact match. This match would result in a number of the row number if it finds a match. If it doesn't find a match, it will actually give us a error. So which we already learned in the team dashboard videos. So I'm going to do an if error. If it's an error, put 0. And then now the result of this, if this is positive or greater than 0, then that means it's a holiday. So we'll do holiday. Otherwise, don't display anything. We will close the new parenthesis that we opened. Edit, Control Enter. So now we have applied the holidays. So for us, okay, I think May 1st was a holiday if I remember correctly. And so let's go and check. May 1st was a holiday. So May 1st, it still says not employed, because if you remember, the order of the implementation is NA, NE, and then holidays. So we need to find an employee who was actually employed. There you go. So now it shows HOL, clearly indicating that it's a holiday. So the holiday formula is working. Now the next part is to do weekends. So Alt Enter, and for weekends it's going to be if index of, go to the weekend selection, and then we'll do weekday, and then we need to provide the exact date value and close parenthesis, and then I think we need to close the index. Okay, now if this index results in a true statement, true, then it's a weekend. Otherwise, don't display anything. We'll close the parenthesis. And now let's see if this actually displays weekend. So all these days are now shown as weekend. Okay, so now let's write the last part of the formula, which is about the vacation type that the employee has taken any vacation. And so I'm going to do Alt Enter, open a new line, and let's start writing the sum product function, just like what we did in the team dashboard. And we're going to do minus minus, and then T underscore vacation, and we will do employee name equals our employee here that is selected, close parenthesis, and then comma. So this part is going to result in all the records in the employee vacation table. It'll actually give us true or false. Wherever this employee 1 is taken vacation, it'll be true, otherwise it'll be false. Now we want to convert that into ones and zeros so that it makes it easy for us to calculate. And so all the trues will be 1 and all the false will be 0. Now the next part we want to do is the start date of the vacation table should be less than or equals the date specifically that we are writing the formula for. So we're going to write the formula here for this date, and so that close parenthesis, and then put a comma. We also want the end date to be greater than or equals. So I'm going to just copy and then change the start date to end date, and then we want to change the less than or equal to greater than equals. So now that is the other part, and we also need to bring in the row number. So which row matched in the vacation table. So we will actually show T underscore vacation and then vacation type. Okay, So now that is being done. And so the result of this, so let's see if we have closed everything. So now the result of the sum product is going to tell us the row, the specific row where this date, so this is January 1st, it'll actually tell us, if I select all of this and press F9, it is 0. That means this employee has not taken any vacation or doesn't have any vacation data for January 1st. So now what I'm going to do is since it only gives us the row number, I need to subtract the row of the header cell, just like what we did in the team dashboard. And I'm going to do headers, and I'm going to close parenthesis, close again the row function. So now the whole thing is going to result us in a row number and inside the table. And so last thing we'll do is, okay, now go to the vacation table and go to the vacation type column, and then use the result of this as the row number into the index function. So let's check once more the parentheses are correct. Vacation time enters there. Sorry, sum product ends there, and then the row ends here. And if I close this, that's going to close the index function. So now we have closed the whole thing, and this will result in the specific vacation type value. And we'll wrap it up with an if error. If there is nothing like this, then I want this to be showing as workday, and press enter. Okay, so we are missing something here. So we close this. We need to close the parenthesis and press select everything, control enter. And now we can see that all the values are getting populated. So now that we have entered the formula, now let's make sure that it is actually working correctly. So one of the things I would want to test is whether for this employee, all the dates are correctly shown. And so I will go into the vacation sheet, and then let's filter down to employee 1, and then let's test it out. So the employee has 5th to 10th as vacation, 10th to 15th as vacation. I believe this would actually cause some problem with that because there is some data quality issue here. The employee is taking vacation from 10th to 5th to 10th, but 10th is also another record here. So we should not have overlapping records for an employee in the vacation data. And that's something that is an assumption, and that is a requirement. And so I think this will cause an issue where the employee has taken two things, two matching dates on this. It actually ends up showing as unpaid vacation, but that's not true. This is because since there are two matching records in the vacation, so this is basically row number 2 in the sheet, and this is row number 5 in the sheet. 2 plus 5 becomes 7. So the formula actually tries to find another record and give us the value, which is incorrect. So if we fix this and say from 11th, the employee was on vacation, then we will not have any overlapping windows. And now you can clearly see that the employee from 5th to 10th are on vacation, and then also 11th to 12th are vacation, and then there are 2 weekend days and then another vacation. So if, for example, we would want to change this to sick days, for example, then we go to the employee report, and now 11th is sick, 12th is sick, 15th is sick, 13th and 14th are weekend. So now it looks like the formulas are working fine, but we were able to come across a good catch and a requirement where the formula is going to find the correct vacation type, but you have to make sure that there are no overlapping vacation dates for the same employee. So this employee, for any given one date, it can have only one matching record. If there is more than one matching record, the formula will give incorrect value. And so if you, so there are two approaches to fix this. One is we can write some more complex formula here to overcome that. Second is we can actually put some formula here to identify if there is any overlapping data, so it gives the warning to the user if there is overlapping. So we could do that, but right now that's not kind of the main focus. And so if in case you need to implement something like that, please post it in the comments, and I will post a new video explaining how to overcome data entry issues or data quality issues with overlapping dates. Now let's proceed further. So now that we have implemented the formula, the next step is to apply some conditional formatting rules so that we can easily identify which days or what type instead of looking at all this text.